Hello all, and welcome back to this special additional episode, as it were, of the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast. This episode was originally planned to ostensibly be a kind of wrap-up to Series 1 of the podcast. If you are a regular listener, you'll know that I've asked all of my guests some sort of getting-to-know-you type questions, including what are their favourite series of Trek and what would they recommend as 3 of the best episodes, or 3 episodes to try and entice new viewers. And I kind of have the results of the most popular ones of those, as well as the final leaderboard of the 11 episodes, or 10 episodes in one movie that we were Series 1. But I also wanted to get into some rather less than pleasant things that have been sort of happening over the world of Star Trek fandom in the last couple of days. And that will be, as you are probably aware, this whole situation with Star Trek Discovery being removed at the 11th hour from Netflix for us international viewers, and us not knowing until like 2-3 days before it was due to debut there, and being told there's no other way to legally watch it. It'll just have to happen on Paramount Plus when that launches, which will be next year. So suffice to say, there were some strong thoughts and opinions, and I do have a couple of guests here with me to basically start out with discussing that situation, people who have either been affected or who have opinions on that. So first of all, Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dan, aka the Scotch Trekker. I run like the website warpfactortrack.com. Also, I'm a graduate of Star Trek, basically because I took the course the first time that it was academically taught in Scotland at Glasgow Clyde College. Also,
nice.
So yeah,
awesome, cool. And I have another guest here. DK, would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hi, yeah, I'm. What can I say? Really, I'm just a jack of all trades when it comes to geekdom. Pretty much my 2 main obsessions are Star Trek and Doctor Who. I've written for one of them. I'm hoping to write for the other at some point in future. Although what I'm probably going to say about Paramount will probably allow that not to happen.
Yeah, for the Star Trek license holders, as it were.
Yeah.
We're not best happy, I think, are we in general in the Trek world. So in case, obviously, you don't want to hear this, as I know some people they've had a gutful of it, or it's still just a bit raw, and I fully understand that. I will leave a time code in the comments or the description, of this video, where you can skip straight to the more celebratory side of things, where it's up and favorite episodes and things. But I know people did have thoughts and feelings and did want to discuss this. So if you are unaware of the situation, because I have had a few people sort of misunderstanding and some not really grasping what it is, just briefly to explain it in as much of a nutshell as I can. Trek Discovery was previously airing on Netflix for international viewers, because we don't have a streaming service that carries it, which is what it airs on in the United States. We had the first 3 seasons come to us literally less than 24 hours after they first aired in America. And that was, as far as we knew, the case for the 4th season. That was what was reported at sort of the Star Trek Celebration event a while back that was hosted by Will Wheaton. That was what people were told at Destination Star Trek Convention just the previous weekend by the actors and people involved with the show. And then, as I say, I think it was 3 days before, so 2 days before the official US premiere, the official sort of Paramount Star Trek Twitter page just put out for international fans, which I'm sure they probably thought was good, but basically read giant FU effectively to international fandom. And I'm just going to see if I can find it just to read out what they said so that there's no kind of misunderstanding on that. So it was a brief sort of 2-picture statement, and it just said, "We know you're anxious to hear our plans for season 4. I wanted to update you," and it's national Star Trek Discovery fans. "Internationally, the upcoming season of Star Trek Discovery season 4 will now premiere. Exclusive Paramount Plus is available in early 2022. This means the new and all previous Discovery seasons will be available internationally in 2022 as Paramount Plus expands globally. In the US, Star Trek Discovery will still be premiering on November the 18th on Paramount Plus, in Canada on CTV Sci-Fi Channel on November the 18th, and streamed on Crave beginning November the 19th. We sincerely thank you for your patience and support as we grow the Star Trek universe on Paramount. We can't wait to show you what's in store, which is a lie, because clearly you can. And then just let's fly. So, yeah, for someone who can't wait to show me what you've got, Paramount, you're making it incredibly hard for me to watch it. So, yeah, understandably, and it's been reported all over the news, fans and people who would have been waiting for this are deeply annoyed that, you know, there's literally no way for us to watch this. Paramount Plus doesn't exist to sign up to now. I'd certainly be less keen to do it after this debacle. And so, yeah, there's been all kinds of thoughts and opinions. People who are either just not going to bother with the show, people who are concerned about spoilers, people who have just explained that it's going to lead to rampant piracy and that's going to hurt the brand. But yeah, so to get into some of these things, basically, what were some of you guys' thoughts? What did you want to kind of lead the conversation with? And we'll start with you, Dan. What did you think about this whole, let's say, shit show, which is Earth for bad?
Okay, so on the Twitter page that I run for Warp Factor Track, I posted actually that because I'd spoken to Netflix on the Tuesday. It was 2 days before the episode was to release in the US, and they told me they had no interest in viewing the episode and screening including in the upcoming programs Discovery Season 4. And it seemed like there was a bit of a backlash. Like there was like some Star Trek sites like saying like, "What's your source for this?" You know, people not wanting to believe it necessarily.
Yeah.
And I posted it because it was so unbelievable, and the news hadn't come out yet. And also like I asked Netflix like if they had any plans for removing seasons 1 to 3, and they said no, we've got no plans to do that. Of course, then that completely changed in the course of one day on that Tuesday, and then I was also like working in collaboration with some other Star Trek websites that were sort of trying to get to the bottom of the story, and they actually told me that like Paramount CBS are going to be releasing a statement about it, and I was like thinking to myself, like, I wonder when the statement's going to drop and how it's going to affect like fans and like what the reaction to that will be. So I found it really interesting. But I think a lot of fans are like not seeing like a big picture at the moment. They're a lot of fans are like generally like pissed off or annoyed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I sort of went through the same sort of thing, but with Star Trek Prodigy, because I thought like it's a new show. Like, what is the sense in like releasing a new show just for the US audience? To me, it seemed a lot more sensible that like they'd wait to finish off the international like of Paramount Plus before releasing a new show. Yeah. Also, I think like you've had like the first 3 seasons of Discovery. I think like people have like gotten attached to the characters during that time, and you know.
Well, yeah, and the real kind of thing that annoys people, myself included, is the fact that it was announced as coming to Netflix, and then it was absolutely
and
last
not even actors knew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the actors have been. I mean, I didn't go to Destination Star Trek, obviously the convention that was just on, but supposedly the actors were all really hyping up season 4 of Discovery, the disco actors that were there, and kind of, you know, they had no idea the international fans were basically going to be screwed over last minute and told, oh, well, you'll have to wait. We would all kind of been affected by this. I'm basically in England, in the northeast of England. Dan, obviously, given your name, you're in Scotland, I assume, somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. And DK, where are you? Where are you calling in from?
I'm from the UK, obviously, but I live in Barcelona.
Oh, okay. So you have you kind of have similar problems on a much more international, grand kind of scale, I guess. So
yeah.
So were you previously getting Discovery on Netflix over there as well, or not?
Oh yeah, we about the subtitles and different language options, different formats for different shows. We pretty much get everything that we used to get in the UK with regards to Netflix. So when Discovery came in, wasn't a problem. Now, I wasn't. I'll be honest with you. I'm not Netflix's biggest fan anyway. I used to be completely obsessed with the MCU shows, and as you remember, a similar thing kind of happened there. But as the MCU tapered off, Discovery was brought in, and I thought, oh, okay, we'll stick with Netflix for a little while longer. Obviously, Netflix has gone the way of the dodo in this household now. So,
yeah, I will say that I cancelled my subscription the second this happened as well, because I just said it's the final straw, basically. Because I'm in exactly the same boat as you. I'm equally kind of nerdy with all these things, and yeah, I was the same when the Marvel shows kind of came off Netflix. Though I didn't necessarily blame them. I kind of thought, well, Disney Plus is launching, and they're obviously going to be the home of the MCU. So I understand it from a business point of view that you don't necessarily, you don't want to kind of be advertising your competitors effectively and kind of showing people something of like, if you like this, you can catch more of it on a completely different streaming service. And I kind of, I understand the business side of that, because some people have kind of given me some pushback onto my Twitter comments and things like, well, these things happen and it's business and all the rest of it. And it's like, I fully understand that, and that would be fair enough if we'd had any kind of notice. I mean, I can remember we were all told like a season in advance for most of these Marvel shows that they were going to be the final seasons. It wasn't like we were waiting on a new season coming and then, other people got
exactly. It was staggered, as it were. While they were announcing the cancellation of Daredevil, you still had Punisher and Jessica Jones coming, and by that point, Iron Fist and Luke Cage had been cancelled, and you knew pretty much what was gonna happen. So you kind of got used to it. And even at that point, they gave us months of notice. It wasn't 2 days before the season was about to drop.
Well, exactly. Plus, I mean, those shows didn't exist anymore. They were fully cancelled. It's not just a matter of they moved over to Disney Plus, which would be one thing, one problem. But it was like Netflix were co-financing or whatever, and kind of partly making it. So naturally, that just stopped happening. So there was no show there to watch. It wasn't a matter of, you can still watch it if you pay for yet another streaming service, which I think is a lot of people's problem with this as well, is that it looks like the Star Trek franchise is probably going to all end up at some point on Paramount Plus. And that means it's yet another streaming service to pay for those of us who have, I don't have all of them streaming services, and at different times I've cancelled for when I don't want to watch certain things and whatever. But just to list the ones that you can technically pay for in the UK, we're talking Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, BritBox.
Disney
there's now
Plus.
going to be Disney Plus, of course, the big one. There's going to be Paramount Plus. There's rumors and word that we may be getting the rollout of like HBO Max or whatever it ends up being called. This is on top of like any kind of Sky TV or Sky package that might still be there, and and not counting things like, for example, if people wanted to subscribe to YouTube Premium to not get ads and things like that. So it's just basically a huge expense, and it's in America, people are saying, oh, it's the new version of cable because people are unplugging. But here, it just seems like they're adding it on top of everything else that people have to pay anyway, which is what really kind of bugs me about this whole situation.
Not to mention with things like Amazon Prime, if you want to watch specific channels like I know for a fact my parents, they love watching Godfather of Harlem, which is on Stars Play.
Right.
I love Doom Patrol, which is on Stars Play. So you have then two households which has to fork out on top of Amazon Prime for the Stars Play channel. Otherwise, you don't get to watch those.
Yeah, there's so many apps that are available through Amazon Prime.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're extra charges, isn't it? And but I mean, to give them a very, very, very thin sliver of credit, because I'm well aware that Amazon is evil and Bezos is the worst person ever. Working conditions and whatever. But even Amazon Prime Video, literally the only reason that I currently still have that is because at least you get like free next day delivery if you're ordering stuff from Amazon. It's extra incentive.
But at the moment, it's got Picard and it's got Lower Decks. But you just wonder how long it's going to be before the same thing happens with those shows.
I don't think it'll be long.
Also having the films.
Yeah, exactly. Well, also plus to come back to what you were saying, Dan, like we say, we don't know the machinations or whatever kind of corporate discussions or whatever went on, but it didn't look like we were losing Discovery from Netflix completely, just that we couldn't see new episodes there. And then again, absolute last minute, it came to Discovery 1 to 3 are pulled, not there, can't watch it anymore. No kind of warning, no advance notice, no this is the last day you have to watch this or whatever that Netflix sometimes do. It was just pulled.
Well, yeah, I noticed that one of the Star Trek novelists, Una McCormack, was like tweeting about the removal would be coming up, and I wondered like how she got that information. I'm not sure. Well, as I was saying earlier, like regarding the big picture, I think the changeover to Paramount Plus is like a sort of a double-edged sword, because it's not only like requiring people to have to pay more, which when I just spoke with a journalist, he was saying, well, that's the same in the States. But it's like a $5 like subscription fee, or like it won't necessarily break the bank or whatever.
No,
but anyway, with and to that I replied, sort of, it depends also, like if you're paying for it with ads or without ads, a bit like how you can pay for YouTube to not have any ads. But regarding Paramount Plus, I think like one plus, if you'll pardon the pun, will be hopefully that all the countries will be able to access the episodes simultaneously, and it'll just be instantaneous.
Well, yeah, I mean, it will be, but you'll be able to. But like you say, it's an extra charge, and yes, it's all well and good saying it's only going to be 5 to 10 quid or whatever it ends up being, but that's on top of 5 to 10 quid to another 6 to 7 other services as well. Plus, and don't take this as gospel as such, but in kind of the course of my research, when I looked to see what was going to happen with the launch of Paramount Plus, at least here in the UK, it was said that they basically partnered with Sky specifically, so you could get Paramount Plus free if you were a Sky Movies subscriber, which is already something ridiculous, like 30 quid a month for that anyway. In order to get it free. So
yeah, and even that, I've seen varying reports about that, because some people are saying like that will be the case, and I've also read that Paramount are saying that it won't be launched as an app. It'll be an independent thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, and which from all, it's obviously this is a corporate complete shambles, so it's nothing's really confirmed one way or the other. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like you're going to have to at least have an active Sky TV box to access Paramount Plus in the first place.
I read somewhere a couple of days ago that it's only going to be available with Sky Q, which is the higher tier. Now, I could be completely wrong about that. It could just be hearsay with, obviously people being angry at the situation. But it's not good, whichever way you look at it.
No, and it's just...
Although I think that it's going to be released with, I think there's a thing called Now TV that's probably done by Sky as well.
It is,
so it seems quite similar to how the subscription platform Peacock just came out.
In America, because that's like the NBC Universal kind of thing. Oh, did it? Okay, I didn't even realize we had it here. Fair enough. See, they did a terrible job of marketing and advertising. I literally didn't even know it from you. So, but this is what's going to happen, I think, with Paramount Plus, because again, I've discussed this with a few people and just said that Paramount obviously are a business, and they're in the business of making money. They want to try and get as much money as they can out of people via whatever obstacles they can place, but they don't really have enough, really, for me, even as the world's biggest sort of Trekkie. It's not enough for me to jump through all these hoops and pay this extra money just for one franchise. And it's been discussed at length, but if I was up for Paramount streaming services, they've been hemorrhaging IP, intellectual property, over the last few years. And they've only got now, I think, Star Trek, Transformers, and Mission Impossible are the big three, and that's it. So they're not really renowned for having tons of big TV shows or hugely famous franchises. Or I mean, in the world where they're competing with, for example, Disney Plus, that has like Disney, Pixar, the Marvel films, the Star Wars films, and whatever, they're not going to win that fight. You know what I mean? No. And it strikes me as, which a lot of people have been saying, this is the worst business decision, because what you're basically doing is forcing people who have become hooked on the show or whatever by legal means and have enjoyed it to either stop watching, in which case you've lost a viewer, or just pirate it, in which case you may as well have lost a viewer because you're not getting any benefit out of that,
It seems to have been a complete shambles business-wise, because you would think with Paramount, they would at least either keep the show back until everyone has Paramount Plus, so people give the actual company the benefit of the doubt, But what they've done is it comes down to what kind of looks like extortion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You've had, and back to what Dan was saying earlier, and yourself, yes, they were doing it with Prodigy, but we've not had 3 seasons of growing with those characters. Now it's like they're kind of trying to push some kind of drug almost. It's, you can have these from now on, we want your money. But the way they've gone about it's so underhand. And that's what really riles me about this situation. The fact that they couldn't even wait to get their hands on people's money, so much so that they've alienated a very, very large portion of their own fan base to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoever came up with the decision must be insane.
Yeah, and I'd love to know. I think it was maybe even one of you two that tweeted and said, I'd love to see the eventual kind of tell-all book that says what happened in these negotiations, because we don't know. For example, who's to blame, for want of a better way to put it. It could be that Netflix wanted to show it, but Paramount Plus were like, okay, you can have this one last season, but you've now got to pay triple, and we're still getting anything after that or whatever. In which case it becomes... Sorry,
all evidence that I've seen is saying that it's down to Viacom CBS, that division in CBS Paramount, and
it seems
the distribution.
It seems unlikely that Netflix at the very last minute would go, actually, we don't want your show, stuff it. You know what I mean? Unless there'd been either some unreasonable demands or they were just told, actually, save it for the launch of Paramount Plus.
Well, exactly. Even these years later, they're still showing the Marvel shows, even though obviously. So, and from what I understand, Netflix put a great deal of their own investment into Discovery. So
I'd heard that.
Apparently that was bought out by CBS. Netflix's share in the making of the program. But I was going to say that I personally received a message from Paramount saying that they had no idea, basically, and to speak to Netflix about it. And Netflix tweeted publicly that they didn't know they weren't responsible for it happened because they're not the creators of the show. The creators of the show clearly are CBS.
Yeah. And I think that's where the blame is kind of firmly landing. And like I said, I've tweeted out kind of petitions that I know aren't probably going to have the desired effect of getting it back on Netflix, but I just wanted kind of the higher ups or whoever it is at Paramount, Viacom, to know how many people they've pissed off. And like I said, the number of people that I've spoken to that have either said, well, I'm just going to pirate it. Do you know what I mean? Even though it's not the most, socially acceptable thing to say. So many people are so annoyed that they're just saying that, or people are saying, well, I wasn't that fussed about your show anyway, so stick it, which that's terrible from a brand growth point of view. If people were kind of, I've seen people who tweeted that were like, oh, I didn't love Discovery, but I watched it because it was there, but pay stuff it, I'm not going to bother. So how many viewers have you lost? Not only the diehard loyal ones, like who were like, we're invested in these characters, we keep watching, but people that were like, I was going to watch it if it was there, but if it's not, I don't really care.
And as a show itself, it has divided Star Trek fandom. So for 3 seasons now, you've had a loyal fan base that's been defending it to the hilt against accusations of, I hate to use the term wokeness, but and saying just defending it to the very lifeblood. And then Paramount, it just seems like they come up and just say, thank you for everything you've done. Now go away.
Yeah, just we don't care. You know what I mean? Because that's what's really, really galling, is that it's not even like it's a small section of the audience. It's the bulk of the audience that can't see this. And it's like they're given special treatment to North America, to the US and Canada. It's like, you can have it, but nobody else can. You know what I mean? And it's that kind of treatment.
Done that for years.
Yeah, that's what does annoy people. And again, this isn't something that will thankfully affect us necessarily, but some people have said, there is the consideration that there are some countries where Paramount Plus isn't intending to launch. And so they've just lost Discovery altogether. So, and there was no consideration for that, no words for them in this statement. It was just a matter of, if you're getting Paramount Plus, wait for it. If you're not, tough shit. You want your audience to be together in this day and age. And again, people have said this isn't the 1990s when it was like we had to wait for 2 episodes at a time on videotape before we could sort of watch it at the same time, or roughly the same time as the US audience. And it's a huge backward step.
But nothing from Paramount to even address the backlash that they've got. Just an apology would go some way but they're showing no contrition whatsoever. It starts in 26 minutes, or it starts in a couple of days, and you just think, and everybody's replying to their tweet saying this is the most tone deaf situation.
That's what people were saying about like the message, the announcement that they did make up, that did put up, that none of it involved an apology.
Yeah, well, no, it didn't, and that was it. And it just seems like if international fans hadn't been clamoring and people like yourself hadn't been ringing Netflix and asking around, were they even going to bother putting out a statement? Was it just going to be, well, it's not there? It's so frustrating that people can't get stuff at the same time, and there's no real reason for it.
No.
So months ago, I emailed Paramount to see when they would actually be completing the international rollout of Paramount Plus, and I still have not received any reply whatsoever.
That does not surprise me one bit. And yeah, like I said, the fact that you treat fans like this, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And I feel bad for the people who have actually shown contrition and who do actually give a dang, even though it's not their fault. So to the actors, I mean, a vast majority of the three actors have made their own tweets or started their own conversations.
I'd be extremely pissed if I was an actor on that show, because they've been left to carry the can.
Yeah.
You've got Wilson Cruz and Anthony Rapp and Bluedale Barrio, and they're all actually apologising as if it's their fault, and none of this is their fault. They're as much shafted by this situation as the fans.
Yeah. There's even been people that have said like they feel sorry for the workers at CBS Paramount who have to sort of like look after the social media accounts because they won't be like the bigwigs or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be interns and stuff, but at the same time, they're the ones posting these tone-deaf things and stuff, and that's their job. Do you know what I mean? They must be aware of that. And who do you go through? That's part of the problem, isn't it? Who do you go through to get to the people that matter? And who ultimately, where does the book stop? Because I put out, like, is this Alex Kurtzman treating us like the dirt on his shoe, and got back a lot of, it's got nothing to do with him, to which people rightly replied, he's the current overlord of Star Trek. If he calls Paramount and says, oi, this is not on, as part of our deal, people have to watch this, get some kind of international rollout sorted. You're telling me that he'd be told, nah, tough shit, mate? No. I'd say it's a complete, just to kind of wrap things up, it's a complete PR disaster for them, and it is going to harm the product, which is a shame, because it's not the show's fault. It's not the people who make the show's fault on the kind of ground level, the writers, directors, especially the actors, like I said, who have all said, we've only just found out about this. We feel terrible. We love our international fans, and to them, as I say, I've seen multiple tweets saying this already, but don't attack the actors or, the episode writers and stuff, because it's got nothing to do with them. It's not their decision. And they clearly do, to give them credit, they do give a crap a heck of a lot more than Paramount Plus or Paramount have ever seemed to. The statements that we got off them really were quite, annoyed on our behalf. And as I was going to say, even Noah, who's married to Mary Wiseman, who's not even on the show anymore, has said, like, I feel awful for the international fans. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was misleading you, but we didn't know anything about this. And if I'm discussing the show, I'm going to make it dedicated chats and try to have spoiler tags and all sorts, which is, again, more than Paramount have bothered to say to the international fans, which is just like, well, if you don't like it, tough, don't follow us, Even
the people that have, like I read a message from someone who's living in Norway, where apparently like they have rolled out the Paramount Plus subscription platform, and they were saying like when Prodigy came out, they didn't have access to it because they're like living internationally. It's
stupid. This whole idea of like not available in your country or whatever shouldn't exist in the year of our Lord 2021. It baffles me, and it just seems like it's a giant middle finger, and that's why we're all, I think, understandably annoyed. I don't think anybody could realistically say otherwise, because as I said, and at the end of the day, as we've all said, even if you want business-wise, don't do it 2 days before, and don't do it when you've been constantly baiting the fans with, are you excited for this? Are you looking forward to this? And you'll definitely get it on this date. And oh no, never mind, you won't. You'll just have to wait.
And even if the Paramount Plus service does mean that like everyone around the world will receive the episodes at the same time, there'll still be the supposed licensing issues that have like stopped the trailers and stuff being completely viewable by the entire world.
Well, exactly, yeah. They don't seem to know what they're doing with it, but I will say that if you are a Star Trek fan, it's not looking good if you want to access the franchise in any way other than Paramount Plus.
I've really been thinking, like, if Strange New Worlds is released in the US but not internationally, how much of a backlash might there be then? I think a lot.
Again, normally I would at least ask people on Twitter if it was on Netflix, what were your thoughts? How did you think it was? And have the conversations. And again, you're killing the buzz around your product because people can't talk about it. And by the time we are able to internationally, it's going to seem like old news, I guess. Even if you've managed to avoid spoilers, which is going to be a heck of a minefield within itself.
Thinking, like, when Prodigy came out, like, how difficult will it be for the international fans to avoid spoilers for months on end? It's just not practical or realistic at all.
No.
I didn't think, again, obviously with Discovery.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of people spoiling Prodigy and stuff, like, because, well, again, I don't think there's been that much hugely that has happened that hasn't been at least publicized. They kind of know how to sell it to fans who might not have seemed interested, and they've got a legacy character in there, so that's going to be your trump card, I guess, isn't it? So, but yeah. So, did you have any last thoughts, DK, on this before we move on, or no?
No, I just honestly cannot see how they're going to recover from this for the show itself, because surely the amount of people that's now setting out to pirate something, which I mean personally I don't want to do. I want to watch it. I will buy the physical media. I do want to support the show, but Paramount are just making it impossible. And surely everybody that's working on the show, the cast, the crew, their jobs are going to now be in jeopardy because the viewing figures are going to drop through the floor.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I will say that I do plan to buy the physical as well. I'd literally just got the season 3 set this week, and then this news came out, and so now it's kind of a depressing thing to not want to stick that on and watch it. If Paramount are listening from some minor miracle, this is how peeved and how annoyed your hard base is. And this is 3 very relatively small voices in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, there's an old adage that says that for every complaint you actually get from somebody who's bothered to pick up a pen and write or email or whatever, it equals 1,000 people that are annoyed. And I did briefly look at the petition to bring Discovery back to Netflix, just reached 1,000 signatures. So if that's 1,000 people times 10 that you've pissed off Paramount, it doesn't take a genius to do those maths when it comes to viewing figures, I'm just going to say. So, yeah. Well, so that'll conclude the talk about all things kind of annoying and legal and everything. So did you guys want to stick around for the more celebratory stuff, the celebration of things that have gone in the past series?
Yeah, if we can only do with bringing the mood up.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Well, I'll start then because you guys haven't had a chance to do this and I've been doing it with all my other guests, what I've been asking all the guests before we get into our reviews, which obviously we're not doing a review as such, but what I've been asking the guests is, can you remember what it was that first introduced you to Star Trek, and what was the first episode that you maybe saw that made you think, oh, I really want to see more of this? And we'll start with you, DK, we'll start with you. Why not?
I'm quite old, so the first experience I had was good company. Was the original series. My parents put it on for me. Well, I think I was pretty much just old enough to watch a TV, and my parents put on. I'm not sure if it was to keep me quiet, but they put on episodes of, as I say, 2 things: Doctor Who and Star Trek, and they probably regretted it ever since. Yeah, the TOS, and the one I think that really stood out to me. I mean, it scared the hell out of me as a child. But Operation Annihilate, with the flying pizzas,
the like weird amoeba flying things that attach to your back or whatever. Yeah, that's a weird one to have caught, isn't it? For a first episode.
It is. But, I was just hooked from then on.
Awesome. What about yourself, Dan? Then over there in Scotland, what was your first exposure, and what was your first sort of beloved episode or whatever movie that got you watching?
I can basically relate to DK when he was saying, like, the first episodes, I felt it just hooked me, basically. My family bought a VHS recorder machine for Christmas. I think it was 1991. I'm pretty sure. And and it still had like a VHS tape left in the machine. It turned out to be a recording of the episode The Defector.
Good episode.
Appealed to
that
me.
is a good one.
It just like really appealed to me, like how dramatic it was and stuff like that. And I guess from then on, like I've been a big fan of Ron D. Moore's writing. Usually, I've written for Memory Alpha for years, and was an admin of them there for 6 years, and really got interested in like the writers that wrote for the show and stuff, more than the cast a little bit.
That's cool. That makes I know certain writers there are that I would always look forward to their episodes, and then there were some that was certainly as they developed, it was kind of more of a, oh dear, the Berman and Braga Enterprise episodes weren't the greatest things that have ever been written, unfortunately, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose.
Can I just say, like, I feel like so privileged in a way that the website that I run, warpfactortrack.com, has actually one of those writers writing for Lisa Klink, who wrote for
Message
years
in a Bottle.
Voyager.
We were just praising her writing on Message in a Bottle just when we reviewed it a few weeks ago, actually. So if you get a chance, pass on that we absolutely... Yeah, it's such a good episode. Because I don't think the writing of that episode gets credit for the fact that it balances serious stakes with being a slapstick comedy, and that's virtually impossible to pull off. So kudos to her for that one. So then we'll go back to you, DK, and say if you had to pick, gun to your head, a favorite series from the franchise, or the movies, if you'd rather sort of lump them together, what would be your favorite?
You're not gonna believe this. This is why I'm patient when it comes to Discovery. It was only a couple of years ago we had a rewatch in this house. Prior to that, I'd only ever seen a couple of episodes of this particular series, just from the first season, and it didn't particularly stick with me. But last year, I sat down and finally watched Deep Space Nine, and it blew me away.
Awesome.
Just so good.
What about you, Dan? What would be your favorite sort of series or the movies overall?
For series, I usually say Voyager with TNG close second, and usually my choice of favorite movies pretty controversial, which is Into Darkness.
Oh, okay, that is controversial.
That's brave.
Very brave. I'll chuck that under honorable mentions, I think. So and so the question, as I said, that we've been asking everyone, the big question would be, if you had to pick 3 episodes / movies to represent the very best of Star Trek, or to potentially show someone to try to get them into the show by putting your best foot forward, which 3 would you choose? And we'll start with you again, DK. What would you go with?
Episode-wise, City on the Edge of Forever.
Awesome. You're not the first to say that.
Yeah, it's never going to age. I would say you need to kind of obviously know the story. It's not a standalone episode, but It's Only a Paper Moon from DS9.
Good choice, but it hasn't come up yet. Great.
And movie-wise, it's got to be Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, everyone loves that one, don't they?
Yeah,
I think it's between that and First Contact, certainly. So
definitely,
awesome. Awesome. So, what about you then, Dan? What would be your 3 choices?
So actually, I was going to say The City on the Edge of Forever as well.
That's no problem. It just means it's more votes for it, which I'm all for because I love that episode.
I was hard pressed to choose a second episode. Maybe Trials and Tribulations.
Awesome.
Good one.
Cool. You're not the first to say that either, so that's cool.
And film, probably The Wrath of Khan, because it starts off the trilogy of The Wrath of Khan, Search of Spock, and Voyage Home.
Awesome. Did you want to sort of throw out any honourable mentions of episodes or anything, or are you happy with those choices?
I really like Spock's brain.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I think it's completely underestimated. A lot of people don't understand it was actually written as a comedy, I think.
Right, okay. I mean, so was The Trouble with Tribbles, but it's still infinitely better in my opinion, but okay.
Well, each to their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just it's weird because there's even a Spock's Brain Award for worst episode that one of the Star Trek books has. But yeah, I love discovering things that people like that you might not necessarily know of because different strokes, isn't it? So, and what about you, DK? Anything you want to shout out as an honourable mention?
I'm sure everybody's mentioned it anyway, but TNG's In a Light.
In a Light? No, actually, it has come
Seriously?
up only once under honourable mentions. So the way my scoring system works, that just moves it into actual, because that gives it 1 point. So you've actually just saved that episode, I think, from somewhat obscurity. Yeah, it's weird. I thought that would have been more popular. So, but never mind. I think we will start with the episodes and then go for the overall series to conclude, and then end with the leaderboard.
Could I just like give a shout out to a movie?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, for an honorable mention, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I guess I was thinking it's definitely relevant for now, but not so relevant for when this. I just realised when this show goes out, unfortunately, but it was Star Trek Generations, which is celebrating its 27th anniversary today.
Oh, awesome, cool. Yeah, that was another one that literally had an honourable mention, but you've just moved it into the main part of things. So very good.
That killed me when I went to see it. I knew what was going to happen, but still.
Oh, see, I was too young. The first thing I saw in cinemas was Insurrection. But I was super hyped about First Contact on video back in the day, so not that young. But, awesome. Well, what I'll do then, I'll go through. So just to give everybody some clarifications, as I say, I've been asking everybody for their 3 favorites, and people have unprompted kind of mentioned a few honorable mentions. So the way that I made up the list was just if something has an honorable mention, it's worth half a point. And if something gets a full-on mention as one of the favorites, then it's worth a full point. So naturally, some of these scores will be like 1.5, 2.5, etc. And that's the reasons why 2 people picked it in their sort of official top 3, and maybe 1 person shouted out as an honorable mention. But effectively, what this will give you is hopefully a list of the very best of Star Trek, so that if you're new to it, you can potentially come to the episodes and watch them fresh and see for yourself what all the fuss is about. Or if you just wanted to see what fans regard as some of the best stuff, or at least the fans that have been on the podcast, then you can kind of check that out for yourself as well. So I'll start with the honorable mentions, and I'll just maybe shout out to you guys and see what your thoughts are on these. The very first honorable mention, obviously, would be Spock's Brain, because that's the first one chronologically. That was an honorable mention that just came up, and I think we know your opinion on that one, Dan. So, yeah. I'll move us along to the next one. The next honorable mention was the episode A Matter of Perspective from Next Gen, which came up. Just stop me if there's anything you have thoughts on with this one, but we'll get into the actual episodes on the main list. Other honorable mentions, Past Tense from DS9, the 2-parter. Also from DS9, Meridian, and Looking for Parmac in All the Wrong Places. From Voyager, Bride of Chaotica, Blink of an Eye, and Endgame. From Discovery, Context is for Kings. From Lower Decks, Keishon, His Eyes Open, and the movie Star Trek Into Darkness, which you mentioned. So, any thoughts on those honorable mentions? Do you think it's a varied list?
It's eclectic.
Sure is.
I thought it was interesting that Lower Decks, such a recent episode of Lower Decks as well, came up.
Yeah, definitely. From series 2, absolutely. Yeah. It's kind of a cool list of things. So I'll get into the list. It's going to be by score this time, because this is the full official list. But within the scores, I'm going to go chronological by series. So this is everything that scored 1 point, which is either a full sort of arriving in somebody's list, or 2 people gave it an honorable mention. The first one on that list is the Corbomite maneuver from the original series. I love that episode. Basically the Enterprise being tricked into thinking things were a bit more dire than they necessarily were, with a cool little surprise ending, and the most terrifying puppet, I think, from 60s TV that a lot of people were frightened of. So, have any thoughts on the Corbomite maneuver, guys?
It's a good episode. It's solid. It still stands up after all this time, I think. And it's nice to see Clint Howard, because he didn't get enough work back then.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's still starring in Trek today. Yeah,
he's done quite well out of it. He was the Jeffrey Combs of his day.
Yeah, come to think of it, yeah, I guess. What about you? You're a fan of Coordinate Maneuver, Dan?
Yeah. Like recently I watched Gene Roddenberry's Genesis 2 and Planet Earth pilots, and I was surprised there's a character actually, I think it's in Planet Earth pilot, that's called Baylock.
Oh, fair enough. Awesome. The next thing on the list then is we're into the next gen episodes now. That was the only TOS to get 1 point. The first next gen episode was Deja Q, which more of a slightly more amusing episode, I think, to make the list, but one that I love again. So yeah, cool. The second thing on this list was an episode that we reviewed actually, and it was Yesterday's Enterprise. Which when we reviewed it, it got a perfect 5 out of 5 score, but it only has 1 point in this list, which is bizarre. Maybe people didn't think they could choose the episodes that we were reviewing, but yeah, I mean, it's a classic, isn't it? Yesterday's Enterprise, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it too often, but yeah, I agree with the overall opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so good. Weirdly enough, the next one was the very next episode to air, which was The Offspring, which also made this list. Yeah, heartbreaker, that one. Data creating a daughter who obviously isn't long for this world, because we know there's no daughter around her. But yeah, definitely a highly recommended episode. The next one, which I'm surprised only got 1 vote, was Family from Next Gen. The episode dealing with the repercussions of what had happened with the Borg and everything just previously. Very emotional, powerful episode there. So it was actually picked really by... yeah, very good. It was picked by one of my guests as a kind of triple thing, because he said he wanted to pick Best of Both Worlds and Family for new viewers to watch as one continuous thing. So had to include it. And yeah, Darmok, we've said, just sneaks in here with 1 point. Very good episode. Yeah, again, I think a lot of people's favorite. It's definitely unique in its kind of central conceit, and yeah, love it. The Next Generation's The Inner Light again sneaks in here. A very popular episode.
This is one I'm not so sure on.
Not so keen on that one.
Yeah.
I remember not loving it as a kid because I thought it was a bit boring, but as an adult, I really appreciate the point of it and how it's kind of so powerful for so many people. So
yeah, I think I get both perspectives. Like I appreciate the story for what it is and stuff like that, but it's slow paced.
Yeah,
it's definitely a definite glacial compared to some of the other episodes.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's not really an ensemble piece in terms of the crew of the Enterprise. It's very much Patrick Stewart's, big moment.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, the next thing, which again I'm good at, didn't get more votes, was let's see, Cause and Effect from TNG, which is just one of the first ones I think I ever saw, and I just loved it as a little rip-roaring adventure with a couple of surprises in it. Cool. Likewise, the one after that, Chain of Command, deserves way more than 1 point, but there you go. Fair enough. Love that episode. You guys must love that one, right?
Definitely.
I like it once Picard's like captured and going through the torture and stuff like that. Sorry to bring the tone down a little bit.
No, that's the kind of the key point.
Sort of the away mission before that and stuff like that. I think it's a bit like slow paced as well.
You're not a fan of Ronnie Cox as Captain Jellicoe, then?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think he's really good in that as well. But I know what you mean. It's a 2-parter, and there's a little bit of padding to make it into 2 parts, but what's there is very good. Awesome. The next one was the movie Star Trek Generations, which made it into the list with 1 point. Yeah, it's a good movie. I think it gets very unfairly criticized by some sort of corners of the fandom. It's just a nice, perfect continuation of Next Gen, and R.I.P. Enterprise D, which ends up crashed in that one. But yeah, it just seems harmless to me. It just seems like an extra episode of Next Gen, I guess, in some ways, but with a bigger budget. So yeah, awesome. So I'll move on. The next couple are from DS9 then, and the first one from 1 point here is The Way of the Warrior, which again, insanely popular. Yeah.
I really enjoyed rewatching that recently in HD.
Oh wow. Awesome. Yeah, that would look amazing. The battle scenes in that are fantastic. The space battles and things, I mean. And Worf joining DS9. So, it was a big, important episode. And I think, again, quite beloved. The next one would be the episode It's Only a Paper Moon, which I'm pleased ends up on this list because it does deserve it. It's, again, a very emotional episode that tells a story that you wouldn't necessarily expect and which needs to be told. So thank you. I think it was DK, was it, that chose that one?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for that. That's another good addition, I think, to to this list. The single Voyager that got 1 point was the episode Latent Image, which again, unfortunately, I think deserves way more because I love that episode. That would be definitely one of the contenders that I would show someone as the best of what Star Trek can do. Are you guys familiar with that one? No.
Which seven episode is that?
Not ringing about. Oh, it's the one where. It's the one with the Doctor, isn't it? Where his memory, he thinks his memory's been tampered with.
Yeah, because he basically had to choose between two people, one to die and one to live because of an away mission, and has to live with the effects and kind of reconcile that. And yeah, it's such a good episode. I love that episode. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's not a 7 episode. It's one of the, I think, 3 that Voyager did post season 4 that didn't hugely focus on. There weren't many.
I always think, like, sort of post her introduction, like, so many of them were.
Completely. Yeah, definitely. I see your point with that for sure. The next 3 on the list are all Discovery episodes. So apologies if that's triggering at this point in time, but yeah, the first one is obviously the first one is the pilot, the Vulcan Hello. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that in its own way.
I was thinking earlier when we were having a discussion, sort of about the restrictions for some of the audience. It sort of like happened in microcosm with the start of Discovery, because the first 2 episodes were available in the US, on the TV, and then like they were then restricted to the Paramount Plus subscription platform. So
yeah, which again, it feeds into what DK was saying during our conversation, which is it's very much drug dealer type behavior to be like, you like that? The first one's free, the rest you pay for, you know? But yeah, it's pretty dodgy. The second episode on this list is An O-Ball for Charon, which, if you're unfamiliar, is the episode that primarily, I think, deals with Saru thinking he's reached the Vaharai, the end of kind of Kelpian life, and Burnham trying to talk him through that.
And they encountered the sphere.
I was just going to say, and they encountered the sphere data for the very first time. So fans of these shows will know what we're talking about, but if not, then apparently it's a recommended one. And the third and final Discovery to get 1 point was the season 3 episode Forget Me Not, which is basically the one where they visit Trill. So and finally for the 1 pointers, a single Lower Decks episode, Crisis Point, the second last episode of season 1, which again I think probably deserves a bit better. I like that episode a lot, and I love the way it kind of parodies respectfully the Star Trek films and the franchise in general. So awesome.
Like, even though I don't like, I'm not much of a fan of Lower Decks, like I really enjoyed that episode.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah. There's one single episode that managed to reach 1.5 points, and that was the episode The Drumhead from Next Generation, which again I thought was more popular because it's telling a very powerful it's not a light story, shall we say. The idea of, you know, corrupt judges and all of that business, and personal freedoms infringed and everything. Very heavy work. But so with 2 points, we have the Next Gen finale, All Good Things, which is weird because it seems like a lot of people mentioned that, but it only actually made it onto 2 people's lists, or at least it's some of people's honorable mentions. Yeah.
Well, I think that might not be necessarily one that you might like introduce someone to Star Trek with. That's
the thing. Yeah, I think I brought that up to someone and was like, it would be a weird place to start someone being a finale. So yeah. Absolutely. The second 2-pointer is The Visitor from Deep Space Nine. Again, I hear a lot of stories about that episode, and I think that one probably does work a bit better as an introduction because you can always, as I said at the time in the episode that was mentioned, you can latch on to the idea of a father and son dynamic, I think, and it takes you through that episode. It's very good. And the final 2-pointer, very emotional, very emotional. Yeah, again, not light going, bring tissues, maybe, but And the final thing to get 2 points is the movie Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which again, we know it's popular and we know all the reasons why, but everything from Ricardo Montalban to the epic ending moments, shall we say, the big shock endings, to the space battles, to the acting. It's just, it's for me, it's definitely the second best film after First Contact, but it's very close. So
I think it's the
Yeah,
film I've seen most in my entire life, and the narration at the end, the opening narration when it's done by Spock, still gives me chills. I know it's
Yeah,
a very nerdy thing to say, but still.
no, I get you completely. I fully agree, and I'm the same when it comes to the funeral scene when Kirk's voice slightly breaks. Yeah, gets me every time.
I was surprised First Contact didn't come up.
It's not on this list, no. Weirdly enough, not on any of the lists, not even honorable mentions, bizarrely.
Yeah.
But like I said, I only mentioned. It was only about episode 6 or 7 that I thought to myself, "Oh, I should probably mention they can also pick movies if they want." So it hadn't occurred to me until that point. Maybe in series 2 it'll come up or something. But yeah, so again, there's just one single entry that has a 2.5 score, and that's DS9's Trials and Tribulations. The really weird thing about this is that the Trouble with Tribbles makes it nowhere onto these lists, and yet that one does. Again, seems like a weird place to introduce people, but okay, why not? Yeah, Deep Space Nine visits the original series. Fantastic effects in that for 1996 or whatever it was. Melding, people into 60s footage seamlessly. So good.
It was done very well.
Yeah, it was apparently Forrest Gump technology.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I forgot about that. That movie had come out already. Yeah. Awesome. So just a few more then. There's 2 episodes with 3 points, and that is the original series as The City on the Edge of Forever, that would sneak into 4th place amongst the recommended, and definitely has my vote. I didn't vote. I consider myself to be too biased to be allowed, but if I had to pick one of the 3, it would definitely be on my list. I love that episode. That's probably my overall top Star Trek thing. It's just so great and powerful, well acted. It's written at least partly by one of science fiction's greatest writers in Harlan Ellison. It's so good. I just love it. So, and on a similar note, the other episode that got 3 points would also be on my list, and that's the Deep Space Nine episode Far Beyond the Stars, which again isn't
perfect.
Sublime, isn't it? It's such a good episode, but again, it's not one you should watch if you're feeling in any way depressed or oppressed, shall we say? Because oh boy, it gets intense. But yeah, that acting performance by Avery Brooks at the end of that one
is amazing. In that.
And that he directed that episode as well. I mean, yeah, absolutely unbelievably good. You a fan of that as well, Dan, or not so much?
Yeah, I always think it's interesting. It was written originally about Jake instead, but I also was thinking like this episode sort of falls into the trend that I'm sort of noticing here. Like so many of the popular episodes, Yesterday's Enterprise, Far Beyond the Stars, etc., are like the characters are put into like different realities or alternate timelines or whatever. Yeah, and I was thinking like those will be like so popular with fans, but are they like really like how accessible will it be to newbies basically?
I think
if no one's got a basis for that character, if they've not grown with them, it's not going to have as much emotional impact.
I think because it's telling just the story of those guys, though, in Far Beyond the Stars, it's relatable enough because these characters, even though they're played by the same actors, they don't necessarily call back to the DS9 characters. And the story that it's telling is sadly very, very relatable even now, perhaps more so than ever. But
I'd like to know all these people that suddenly think Star is a social justice agenda-driven. Where were these people when these episodes were being shown?
Yeah, Far Beyond the Stars in particular is, I mean, it's Black Lives Matter before the movement ever started, really, isn't it? And it's the way that it says that in that speech, just, wow. So sneaking into 2nd place, well, technically joined first, but I'm going chronologically. So with 4 points, the Next Generation episode, The Measure of a Man, is very highly recommended. Wow. And that's obviously the episode dealing with Data's potential rights as an android. Is he property or is he a sentient being who deserves rights? And, is it an allegory for slavery? And, all the rest of it, all these heavy ideas that science fiction can sometimes get into. So did you guys have any thoughts on that episode, or you haven't really seen it that much, maybe?
It's a solid episode. It's not one that stands out for me personally. It's well written and it's well acted, but it never captures my imagination the way some of the other episodes have. So technically, it's great. It just doesn't strike a chord with me personally.
And I would agree with that. Yeah,
that's fair enough. Yeah, I think it's one of those that you're either fully sort of shouting from the rooftops about, or you're like, yeah, it's good, but okay. The only issue I have with it is the kind of plot of Riker being put as the sort of prosecuting attorney and having to do his best even though he doesn't want to and stuff. Just struck me as, this is weird. Do you know what I mean? How does this work, really? You know? But yeah. And so finally then for the episodes, in joint number 1 spot, and surprising absolutely nobody, the Best of Both Worlds from The Next Generation, with also 4 points. Of course, it's the one that put Star Trek on the map, isn't it? Really?
It's surprised me.
You can't really argue with that one.
Yeah. What were you saying? Sorry, Dan?
It surprised me that that's in joint first place.
Really?
Yeah, I think again, I've probably seen it a bit too many times,
Oh,
and I never thought much of the cliffhanger.
I'm surprised. I strongly disagree with that. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's fun when there's differences. Yeah, differences.
That's okay. I mean, we can still get along. I get what you're saying. You're entitled to an opinion, absolutely. So it just didn't hit for you, the cliffhanger ending.
I just thought it would be like, it's so easy to resolve. It's just like saying fire. I thought it might be like more effective if they'd actually like then fired from the deflector dish.
Yeah, which they do immediately after, so they could have shown that. You are right, I guess.
In part 2, yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people though have seen that as one combined thing because the various video and DVD and Blu-ray releases have it edited together. So a lot of people just don't have that cliffhanger because obviously it doesn't stop at that point. But again, I've heard stories second and third hand from people that were around for the cliffhanger that aired live and were like, and that summer was terrible having to wait to see what that resolution was, and it felt amazing. And I can't relate because I didn't have that. And the very first time I ever saw Best of Both Worlds was as a video that was all edited as one thing, so I didn't even see it for the first time with that cliffhanger.
And also, I was like, I think I'm still like frustrated a bit that they didn't include the Battle of Wolf 359. That you didn't see that until Emissary.
Yeah,
at the start of DS9.
Yeah, I can definitely see your point of view with that one. I agree. It's a kind of a shame that they just had the Kit Bash graveyard that we briefly flew through in that episode. But
yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's got its good points as well. Like I like the Mars Sentry droid things that come and attack the Borg cube as it's coming on. And yeah. I love all Star Trek, basically.
Awesome. I think the battle that we got at the start of First Contact probably made up for not getting Wolf 359 because that battle was amazing. Again, too short, but really good. And yeah, it surprises me that Best of Both Worlds is on this list, but First Contact isn't. And there's not really that many Borg episodes.
Yeah, I was just thinking about First Contact. I was thinking, like, how many times, like, so often battle sequences, due to budget and stuff like that, have to be, like, whittled down. Like, the battle sequence that was originally written for First Contact was massive, and yet, like, there's just one cube eventually, like, in the movie. Similar.
Yeah, well, I think that was always the idea, wasn't it? To sort of say, well, one cube is just that powerful; it can do amazing things. But
loads of Borg ships in the first draft of the script and stuff.
Fully, completely. That's cool. But any thoughts on Best of Both Worlds from you, DK? You just definitely agree with that when you said.
Definitely. When it was released, I saw it at a friend's house. He bought the video cassette with that one and the following video cassette with the conclusion and family. And I remember that day we just loaded up on snacks and we were just all on the edge of our seat as we watched it. And
Awesome.
I think like Dan has with some episodes and movies, I've seen it a bit one too many times. But it's still a cracking story.
I love it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it would have been great to see it like the first time we viewed it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. So the next thing I have is just some facts and figures then to give you by according to the episodes. But apologies, I haven't added you guys honorable mentions and picks into this just yet, so it will not include those, unfortunately. So. Other than with these kind of two guests that I've spoken to today, the most popular series according to favorite episodes goes as follows. Let's see. In 6th place is Lower Decks with 1. In 5th place, Voyager with 1. In 4th place, the original series with 2. In 3rd place, Discovery with 3. In 2nd place, Deep Space Nine with 4. And in 1st place, The Next Generation way out in front with 11. episodes picked amongst people's favorites. And just to do a little bit more of that kind of work, the most popular series by favorite episodes, but including honorable mentions, in that case, gives you 7th place, The Movies, with 1 point. 6th place, Lower Decks, with 2. 5th place, the original series, with 2. 4th place, joint third, I should say, Discovery and Voyager, both with 4. 2nd place, Deep Space Nine, with 7. And 1st place, Next Generation, with 13. So, yeah, no love, unfortunately, in any of these favorite series or episodes for the animated series, for Short Treks, or for Picard, or Prodigy, but that's probably for obvious reasons.
Well, no Enterprise either. I thought maybe we'd get one episode, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even occur to me, but yeah, Enterprise doesn't come up on series or episodes either, bizarrely. Yeah, fair enough. And so the big one then, as I was asking people, what's your favorite series? There's only 4 entries on this list. In joint third, Voyager and Discovery with 1 point each. In 2nd place, Deep Space Nine with 2 points. And this list does actually include you guys' answers. And in 1st place, again, way out in front, with 8 points, Star Trek The Next Generation is the apparently favorite series of Star Trek. So, yeah, bear with me then. That will almost conclude things. The only thing that's left to do is to quickly run through the leaderboard of the episodes that we've been reviewing each week as we go through. It's a top 12 because we reviewed 2 short tracks in one episode, even though there's only 11 episodes. And that leaderboard is as follows. In 12th and last place, the movie Star Trek 2009 with 2.75 out of 5. In 11th place, Next Generation's Encounter at Farpoint with 3 out of 5. In 10th place is the short track Ask Not with 3.25 out of 5. Just above it, Q&A, the other short track, with 3.5 out of 5. In 8th place is the Enterprise episode Broken Bow with 3.75 out of 5. So that's your representation that you wanted there, DK. Yeah. 8th place isn't bad. So yeah, in 7th place is the Discovery episode Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad with 4 points. In 6th place is the original series' or the whole show's really pilot, The Cage, which also got 4 points, but did win a Twitter poll to see which of those two should go higher. In 5th place is the Picard episode Nepenthe, The Return of Riker and Troy, with 4.5 out of 5. In 4th place, the Deep Space Nine pilot Emissary, also with 4.5, but again, it won the Twitter poll. In 3rd place, the Lower Decks episode No Small Parts, the Series 1 finale, with 4.75 out of 5. In 2nd place, also with 4.75, but again, winning the poll, Voyager's Message in a Bottle. And in number 1 with a bullet in 1st place with a perfect score of 5 out of 5, yesterday's Enterprise from Star Trek The Next Generation. So, yeah, that'll wrap up Series 1. That's all the facts and figures and the most popular things. And if you're new to Trek, maybe this video will, or this podcast will have given you some inspiration of what to watch and what not to. And, yeah, suffice to say that I don't think you can go wrong with Star Trek. We all love it, even if sometimes we're treated by the franchise as second-class citizens. So, yeah, do hopefully come back for Series 2. And I may as well make the official announcement now that Series 2 of Hit or Miss will definitely be coming your way starting in February of 2022. I already have, I think, 8 or 9 guests lined up with idea suggestions. And again, I'll make the announcement now. Series 2, I've decided, is going to have a running theme when it comes to the episodes that are being reviewed. And that theme is the Borg and advanced tech. So again, it'll be the same mix of trying to get every sort of series in the franchise involved and the same sort of, or a new mix, I should say, of new and returning guests. And there will be the usual hit or miss section will be back and everything. So, and any new guests, I will, of course, ask them the same questions. We may have a couple of new questions for returning guests as well. So join us then. So yeah, it just remains for me to say thank you so much, Dan, the Scotch Trekker, and DK for joining me today to discuss unpleasant things at first and then celebrate some Trek for the second half. Did you have a good time? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. And did you have anything you wanted to shout out in terms of social medias or other projects, etc.? You don't want to plug your Facebook or Twitter or anything?
I can be found on under the Last Centurion. It's a bit of a strange one. It has my profile picture is Star Trek. My name is Doctor Who. And my profile picture itself is Twin Peaks. So just look for the confused man on Twitter.
That's fair enough. I'm the same. I'm multi-fandom, so I think we've all kind of got to develop a little bit of acceptance for that these days. And what about you then, Dan? Any other projects or any social medias you want to shout out?
Well, webmaster warpfactortrack.com, articles on that site and artwork on that site by a range of contributors, and then also the Scotch Trekker YouTube channel I run with a group of co-hosts, and we'll be we've done basically through from, what was it, last year, 2019, October of last year, I think I started the channel, and then we've just recently stopped doing the videos, but we'll be back for basically a second season after the new year, and we'll be continuing speaking with, interviewing live cast and crew members from Star Trek.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Yeah, well, thanks again. I really appreciate you joining me to discuss all things Trek here today. And I can be found as always at Iron Mike Wilson on Twitter. The podcast's Twitter is at HOM Trek or at HoM Trek, an unintentional homage to Mr. HoM from Next Gen. But do keep following that, even though there won't be new podcasts uploaded until February because of the holidays and things. I will still have interest from the Twitter page, whether it be there's a 30-day Star Trek challenge I think I'm going to start on there, or little bits and pieces of episodes to discuss and things like that. So thanks again for joining me, guys. Again, we will hopefully meet together soon. And remember, in the meantime, we are Starfleet. Live long and prosper, and fuck Paramount.